So let's talk about fiat currency. Contrast that with a gold standard or Bitcoin, and then let's talk also about central banking and inflation, and just flesh that out so everybody knows where we're at.
Yeah, so to give the very high level description, again, the answer to what is money has many questions or many answers, but one of them is we could say that it's a device for moving value or expressing value across space and time. And historically, it's a technology, right? The free market selects what the best tool for the job is. That's true for essentially every market in the world today, but we've never allowed that to be the case in the realm of money. And the best approximation of that historically was gold. So as a technology, money needs to fulfill 5 critical properties. It needs to be divisible, durable, recognizable, portable, and scarce. And I'll gloss over a lot of history, but essentially monetary metals best satisfied the divisibility, durability, recognizability, and portability properties of money. And of the monetary metals, gold was the most scarce. And scarcity of money, so what scarcity means is when demand outstrips supply. But what's unique about money is that demand always exceeds supply. There's never enough, people always want more money. So we could say that money always has this scarcity property inherent to it. But the market gravitates towards the good that best satisfies those first 4 properties, and then fifthly, has the most inflexible supply. So another way to say this is the most inflation-resistant monetary technology tends to be favored by market actors because, as it turns out, surprisingly enough, or not surprisingly, people don't like to get stolen from via inflation. You want to hold the money that holds its rarity and scarcity across time such that no one can dilute you. So that's why, again, gold was selected on the market because there was sacrifice necessary to obtain gold. You had to expend time and energy to dig it out of the ground, such that in this game theoretic selection of money, everyone could trust that no one could arbitrarily violate the supply of gold. Because if they could, they would just print gold if you could and still value
dilute it with silver or something like that, which happened on occasion.
Which they did. Yeah, they've counterfeited gold and any number of things. The problem with gold, though, essentially is that it was great for holding value. Again, back to our original definition, money is a device for moving value across time and space. So gold is excellent at holding value across time, but metals are pretty poor, especially for a globalizing society, at expressing value across space. They're very heavy and difficult to move. They're expensive to move, expensive to secure, et cetera, et cetera. This is where paper currency was introduced. By abstracting gold into a paper currency, we could now increase its transactability across space. And so long as it was redeemable 1 for 1, right? 1 unit of currency for 1 ounce of gold, for instance, then it maintained its ability to express value across time as well. So we're basically augmenting this free market selected technology to make it more transactable across space and time. The problem with that, of course, is that it introduced the need. First of all, it made money debt. So now all of a sudden we don't have money. We have a paper certificate that's redeemable for money, which is gold. So this paper certificate becomes a debt instrument. And the problem is you now needed to trust the custodian, the bank, whoever's holding that gold. You have to trust that they will not produce paper currency in excess of their gold reserves. Otherwise, they are then the one artificially inflating the currency and able to steal from everyone else. And as it turns out, again, money's like being the most important technology in the world. The temptation to manipulate its supply has proven historically to be essentially irresistible. And banks, which tend to become central banks or nationalized banking operations over time, have always violated that trust function placed within them.
Can you give us some recent examples of that?
Well, sure. In 1971, the infamous Nixon shock, he took the world off a gold standard. Subsequent to World War II, we held the Bretton Woods Conference, where it was determined unilaterally by the United States that the dollar would be pegged to gold. Every other currency in the world would be pegged to the dollar. So this gave the United States the infamous exorbitant privilege to just basically be able to print whatever amount of money they want, send the world these paper certificates called dollars, and then receive goods and services in exchange. But other countries agreed to this, 1, because the US was the dominant military power at the time, and 2, because dollars were redeemable for gold. But from between 1944 and 1971, it reached a point where enough countries had lost faith in the dollar that they were asking to redeem their currencies for gold, that Nixon decided to spontaneously close the gold window. So he just moved the world off of a gold standard onto a purely fiat currency standard.
Gigi, let's go to you now and let's fill in some of the gaps about Bitcoin per se. Do you want to fill us in about what it is and why you think it's significant? What's revolutionary about it?
Like the way that Bitcoin works, it doesn't produce anything that can't be copied. Everything in Bitcoin is copied all the time, and you can copy every aspect of it. And there's also nothing that is really encrypted. You know, it uses encryption technology, like cryptographic technology, but it doesn't really encrypt anything. It only uses digital signature schemes to make sure that the ownership of things is clear. But you can read everything in Bitcoin. It's completely plain text. That's why we also say it's speech. You know, you can basically print out how Bitcoin works and put it in a book, and you can actually read it, and you can feed it into another computer and just spin it up again. And also the output that Bitcoin produces, this ledger which records who owns what, is completely plain text. Like you can make sense of it by just looking at it, kind of. And so we have this problem that historically we found physical artifacts to represent this value. Gold coins, for example. And the gold coins, they speak for themselves. Like whoever has the gold coin is in possession of this value, the stored value. Someone else put work into it to extract the gold first and foremost. And after exchanges, you know that whoever earned this gold coin or also stole it, like it doesn't matter. Whoever has this bearer instrument, whoever has this gold coin is in possession. And in the digital realm, doing that without any trusted third party before Bitcoin was impossible because of this double spend problem, because of the nature of information that you can't have any token that can't be copied. So what Bitcoin actually does is it is this play kind of, it is this intricate dance of computers all around the world that spin up a system that checks and verifies copies of this ledger, and it makes invalid copies useless. So you can copy it and you can kind of transform the copies as well. But everyone who participates voluntarily in this game agrees to certain rules, and the rules say that we only accept valid copies according to the rules that we signed up to. And this is what makes all this possible. And what comes out of it is simply a list.
It's an unbreakable contract of trust.
Yeah, it's like unbreakable is a really big word, and everything in Bitcoin works kind of probabilistically, including like cryptography itself. It's basically, it makes use of an asymmetry that some problems in our universe are very hard to solve unless you know the exact solution to it. So that's basically all, like the root of all cryptography. Like if I know the secret, I can decipher the message instantly and very easily. But if you don't know the secret, you will have to guess every possible secret. And this is where this asymmetry of power comes from. So cryptography is inherently defensive. And this is what Bitcoin makes use of as well. Like if you don't have my private key, you cannot spend my Bitcoin, period. Like the heat death of the universe will come first before you will be able to do that. And this is the power of Bitcoin. It's basically, you can think of it as a shared Excel sheet, like a shared ledger that simply attests to who owes what to whom. Like it has a list of, these are the 21 million Bitcoins that we have, and John owns some and Robert owns some, and it's a list of transfers. So it's a list of transactions. And if you add all this up and make sense of all the transactions, it's the what is recorded is from the genesis of Bitcoin up to the present moment, everything that happened in the Bitcoin ecosystem. And so that's what makes it
trade
exactly
and ownership.
That's what makes it so trustworthy.
It's like it's a computerized accountant. It's keeping track of who owns what and who owes who what, and it's distributed everywhere so no one can corrupt it.
So the security is distributed in the sense that the security is at the edges, and the system itself is insanely resilient. And what enables this trust is exactly as you have said, it's transparent and it's radically distributed. Everyone has a copy, so I can check it for myself from the very first block, like the genesis of Bitcoin, up to the present moment. I can verify everything myself.
Okay, so practically speaking, guys, Bitcoin, it's not easy to spend. It's not, you can't go into a store and spend it. Like, it doesn't have that portability that you described, Robert, as a cardinal element of a necessary currency. And it isn't obvious to me that it's been rapidly moving in that direction, but that may be a mere consequence of my ignorance. Or my time scale. Maybe it'll happen in 10 years, and that's virtually instant from a historical perspective. I mean, do you think Bitcoin can leap the gap between its, what would you say, somewhat
store
idiosyncratic
exchange?
Yes, that's right, exactly.
You know, is this energy expenditure and the environmental issues around Bitcoin, is it worthwhile? Right. And as you said, the market is the best thing to determine whether something is worthwhile or not. I tend to think of our impact on the planet not as the planet in isolation, but as in human flourishing. I mean, isn't that what we should be looking at when we talk about the environment? Not just is the natural world harmed in some way, but is our relation.
Otherwise, we're just talking about maximizing someone's ideological perception. Right?
Exactly.
This is what the environment should be.
If I might jump in terms of like, you can't go to the corner shop and spend your Bitcoin, I would say, you know, that's a fair criticism, but that was true 20 years ago for e-commerce and other technologies. So it happens gradually then suddenly. Like that was the same criticism, was like, what am I going to do with a smartphone? What am I going to do with the internet?
Electricity.
Like it doesn't work yet, you know? Yeah, and electricity, a lot of Bitcoiners or some Bitcoiners like to use this metaphor because Bitcoin is also a network and electricity is also a network. So you have network effects and they take a while to grow. Bitcoin is very usable already, and there are a lot of people already living on a Bitcoin standard. So they are earning Bitcoin, they are spending Bitcoin, they're using Bitcoin day to day. Currently, because we are still in this early adoption phase, and Bitcoin is an exponential technology built upon other exponential technologies, so it lives on the internet and it uses like smartphones and other devices that are exponential in nature to propagate itself, then it will just take a while until it is ubiquitous. But I think also it is unstoppable, just like the internet was. You know, the internet dematerialized all kinds of things and it just took a little bit to play out. And Netflix wasn't possible from day one. And video Zoom calls that we are having right now weren't possible from day one. And very similarly, Bitcoin is evolving and building itself up in layers. And currently, its main use is as a censorship resistant money. If you are not allowed to have a bank account for whatever reason, Bitcoin serves you very well. And if you want to have a long-term store of value, Bitcoin is an excellent choice of store of value as well. And just look at the data, like historically, year over year, Bitcoin compared to the US dollar gained 200%. So if you put some money in Bitcoin, if you have done that in the past, you are better off than having money on the bank account or under your mattress because of the inflationary nature of fiat currencies that we discussed.